Hi everyone, Sean here for theworldcupnow.com, bringing you your Barclays Fantasy Premier League tips for Game Week 24. Now, there are two things that I want to cover today, and those are going to be if Robin van Persie is a good substitute or replacement for the injured, or we'll soon find out, injured Sergio Aguero. And then the second thing is a new segment that I'm going to be rolling out, which is untitled at the moment, but it is suggested by a friend of mine, a close mate. And what I'm going to be doing is taking a look at your fantasy team and comparing it to someone who you want to jump in your mini league. So I'll be looking for your submissions moving forward, what your team name is, if you can link it to your team, and then the league in which the position you want to jump. And then I'll compare the two and give you some advice on who you should bring in, what aspects you should change about your team, if there's anything that needs to be looked at to help you jump over that other fantasy manager in your team, or in your league rather, sorry. So, getting back to the point of Sergio Aguero and finding a replacement for him, I think really this depends on your formation, 1, your availability of funds, 2, and 3, who's already present in your team. Now, to touch on that first point, your formation is going to be very important, and this is an aspect that I have to address with my team this week, because I have a 3-5-2 formation, meaning that I need to play that second striker. I can't just go from a 3-4-3, rely on my 2 front strikers, and then keep Sergio on the bench. So I do need to find a replacement for him, and this is why your formation comes in key. Now, if you do have a 3-5-2, look for a direct replacement. There's 2 scenarios that I'm looking at right now. One is bringing in either Dzeko or Negredo for him, because it's just a direct swap. You're actually going to be keeping money that you've made, based on what you've already made or when you picked him up. If you picked him up the first game week he was back, I believe his selling price is at 12.1, so you would be looking at buying him back at 12.1 should he fall in the next coming weeks in price. Now, secondly, Robin van Persie is another substitute that you can bring in for him. You will have to pay up, meaning that you'll have a double transfer. This is the second scenario that I'm looking at for my team too, because I can get rid of maybe a Koscielny who has tough fixtures coming up after this game week. So it might be prudent to get rid of him, bring in Van Persie, and get rid of those 2 with 1 stone, maybe at a -4, or if I hold off this week at 0 cost because I'll have 2 free transfers. And that's something I'm going to stress moving forward. I know I've taken a lot of hits in the last week, or in the last game weeks, but moving forward, this is where points are going to get tight, and you may want to just kind of tighten that up. Try to avoid taking hits if you can. Now, based on if you already have Yaya Toure, you can maybe get away with not having City coverage up front, meaning you don't need the City striker, but you can rely on Yaya Toure. I feel that moving forward in the next coming game weeks, even though they have a blank in game week 28, you're going to need City coverage. That's where a good differential is going to come in, because they have 3 home games in a row, and we all know how City are at home. So, then lastly, based on how many funds or what available funds you have, team selling value, that's going to play a big role in whether you can swap out for Robin van Persie, or if you need to do a step down and go to a Dzeko or Negredo. So take a look at who you have in your team. Try not to do a double transfer for a hit. See if you can avoid it. And that's my advice. But Robin van Persie, I think, and now I'm going to be waiting for Pellegrini's press conference tomorrow to see if it's going to be worthwhile to keep him or to drop Sergio Aguero. Now, I'm on the fence about Robin van Persie, but I think he would be a good substitute to bring in. But again, You don't want to be lacking on your Man City coverage because of those fixtures that are coming up, because they're at home and they're bottom half teams, so there's going to be points galore. So you want to have some coverage, and I feel that it's important that you take a look at those aspects to see and judge for yourself whether Robin van Persie is a good substitute for you. Now, that being said, it's something that you'll have to look at. I can't do that, but one thing I can do, and moving into my second segment, the untitled segment, as I said, I'll flip the screen in a minute, but something that I can do, if you provide me with the information, whether what team you have and who you're planning to jump, or if you'd like to jump, send those in. I'll take a look at them and I'll post them in a segment each week as I do these videos. But I'm just going to flip the screen and I'm going to do my buddy Jake a favor because he's the guy that I had a bet with for the beer and the shot. Luckily I came through this week, so I win the beer and the shot. He won last week, so he wins the beer. So really net I'm getting a shot, which will be claimed tomorrow, Friday evening. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of fantasy discussion that evening. But I'm going to take a look at his team because one, he suggested it, so I do owe him kudos to suggest in this segment. I think it's very informative and can help you guys out a lot, and that's what I'm here for. So I'm going to take a look at his team, who he can jump in the mini league that's important to him, which I know is the Pinch Grip Patriots, and see what he can do to, whether he needs to drop players, pick players up, and just kind of take that information and hone it so that he can jump the fantasy managers that's currently above him. So I'm just going to flip the screen and we'll go from there. Alright, so just switching over here to my laptop and just going to go through a new segment yet to be named, and we'll come up with that in the next little while, probably tomorrow evening. But it's something that I want to do to help you guys in your mini leagues, because really that's where all the bragging rights are. That's where you go to the pub with your mates and you just kind of brag about how you did last week. I mean, everyone does. So I kind of want to help you guys out. And this was suggested by one of my close friends, Jake, aka the Feather Rufflers, and I do have his team up, and I figured he could get the inaugural, whatever this segment is called, yet to be named. So what I've done is brought up his team. So this is his team, the Feather Rufflers. They they had a subpar week last week, and you can see, I can see one or two problems right away. One kind of could be avoided and one that couldn't. First one that is a glaring thing that needs to be addressed is the McGregor issue in net. And he's actually very fortunate or very astute to have a good backup, and he's got Bork from Southampton to back up. So he can just swap that out. So that's a direct swap. Obviously that'll be, that goes without stating. Hopefully he knows that. Secondly, really he needs to work on getting Kabai. I think his price is protected, meaning that no matter how many people sell him in the coming weeks, you're not going to lose the value. So he's lucky that way, but had it have been a red card or some other injury, you could have lost value by not addressing this, meaning you're not going to get a straight swap for a Morales or a Ramsey or whatever option he wants. Injuries aside, looking at that, he's got Kabai and Aguero that need to be addressed. Koscielny, a good pick. Smalling, good. Sangya, good. Bruce on Hull, cheapy, not bad. Ericsson, Mata, Navas is good. I'm going to recommend that you hold him going into these fixtures. And I think really the one glaring error is that he captained Hazard, which takes a lot of testicular fortitude, as we say, and unfortunately didn't pay off this week. Who knows? Maybe it'll pay off this week. But for me, I think this is just one of those seasons where the armband goes on Suarez, and then you just try and make up ground elsewhere in your team. So Suarez and Aguero, very good front line. But I think with Aguero, the fact that he has Navas, you might want to either swap for a Negredo or drop Navas, and Aguero, pick up Yaya Toure, and then maybe get an Adebayor or maybe a Benteke who's kind of finding his form. But before I make any suggestions, I'd like to take a look at who he needs to jump. That's the one thing we got to look at. So, pinch grip Patriots. If I clicked on that, which I already have, but I've got the table here. The next above him is the Beach Patrol, and the fantasy manager behind that team is another friend of mine, Tom Kunovic, and there's a 1 point difference. So it is close. So decisions matter. Who you replace players with is going to matter, and whether you take a hit is going to matter. So when it's close like this, 1, it's exciting. 2, your decisions count for a lot more. Okay, sorry about that. I paused. It was taking a long time to load. So taking a look at this team, we have Chesney in net, which is a good choice. Fonte, a good week last week. Dawson kind of got killed because they were playing City. I don't know why someone would play a defender that they're playing City against. I mean, I had Walker and I put him on the bench. It really goes to show that it doesn't matter how valuable your defense is, it's who they're playing. Mertesacker, a good pick, but I'm starting to see a little falter in Arsenal. Really, looking at the differential on the defense, let me just take a look at his bench too. He's got Distin injured and Turner. Okay, so out of those 5, you don't really have to worry about Distin because he's injured. So really, it's basically coming down to just a 4-on-4 in terms of defense. Now, one thing I can see, which is kind of going to be a hindrance for this week only, it seems fitting that the 1 week I start this, it's the 1 week where this can happen. But Mr. Kunovic has activated his wild card in the last minute attempt to readjust his team. And I think with the injuries to Ramsey and Distin, and with Turner and his game time coming under question with all the new acquisitions at Cardiff, it's probably a good decision on his part. So I'm just going to base this on the team that he has here. And unfortunately, it's going to be completely different because he has a wild card. But even then, he still does have a pretty strong team, so there might not be a lot of changes. So on the defensive side, really, you look for maybe some more differentials. Both of you have a different person, but they're on the same team in terms of Mertesacker, Koscielny, and Sagna. With Jake, I would probably suggest dropping one of the 2 of Koscielny and Sagna. That decision is up to you. I will simply say, though, that Koscielny will get more bonus points than Sagna, but Sagna will get more offensive points, as shown by the assist that he... Did he? Yeah, sorry, that's goals conceded. Yeah, by the assist that he got last week. So bear that in mind. And you want to maybe keep the offensive ability to kind of counteract the Fonte, because Fonte has some offensive ability. Now, moving into the midfield, there is some similarities, which is obviously going to be very common because the midfield, there's a lot of options. But having Hazard, you both have him, so that'll cancel out. And then really, looking at it, it's, or would be, Ramsey versus Cabaye. They're both out. They're probably going to be switched, so we'll just kind of cut those guys off. So you're looking at Navas versus Toure, Lallana versus Mata, and Eriksson versus Kolbak. So, barring any changes in his wild card, really look at Toure versus Navas. Who has the advantage? For me, it's a clear advantage with Toure because he's on penalties, and it just seems to be one of those years where Toure is getting everything. I'll go Mata Lallana. Lallana did get more points. He is kind of that central, point for Southampton. And Mata, I feel, is probably going to be like that for United. So really, I would probably keep Mata just because he's going to be that differential should Southampton start to falter in the second half. And Eriksson versus Kolbak. Kolbak is a good choice. I feel that there are better choices. So you've got Key and Adam Johnson. So really, I would keep Eriksson in that case. So keep Eriksson because he's probably a better point man to go for versus Kolbak. Suarez, obviously going to be present in every team. So the only thing that we want to change is put the armband on him because I'm pretty sure every manager is going to have Suarez captain. So that'll be just negligible. Just kind of keep that consistent and then concentrate on your other two strikers. Aguero, you can probably downgrade to probably a Dzeko, and then, or even a Negredo, and then combine that with one of Benteke or Adebayor. That will give you a good advantage over the Rooney and Rodriguez that is above you. Now you could even take that further and do downgrade Aguero and do Rooney and then someone else. But then again, you're getting into the difference of funds. I don't think with a team value of 106.6, depending on when you got Aguero, you might not be able to afford that because that is kind of expensive. Because I know Aguero is at 12 and Rooney's selling price is at 10 and change, I think, right now, if you were to pick him up. So it might be better to just go pure differentials on your striker. Yeah, he's 11.3, so that's even worse. Yeah, so it's probably better to do differentials with a Dzeko or a Negredo and an Adebayor or one of a Benteke, or a combination of those four players up front. That'll give you a differential moving forward that you can kind of jump above them. So I'll revisit this next week just to see what changes were made and to see who won point for point and where they are in the standings. And again, like I said, please submit your team, whether it be through a link or just, whether you're in my league or another fantasy football league. Send me the link and send me the league that you want to jump a player or a fantasy manager in, and I'll take a look at this. I'll take some time, evaluate the team. I think next time I probably won't take as long. I'll probably try and refine it to have a shorter video time because right now I'm just kind of doing this off the cuff, and I'll take maybe a day to look at both teams and then bring up a quicker video to kind of show you where the differentials are, just so for time's sake on the video it'll go by a little bit quicker. But again, I do wish you good luck in this coming weekend for game week 24, and I will see you next Thursday.